My name is Ava. I'm 32, and the woman I called my best friend for a decade destroyed my life for a man, and I destroyed hers in return. But it wasn't clean. It wasn't easy. It cost me more than I thought it would. And there were moments I wondered if I'd gone too far, if I'd become something as ugly as the thing I was trying to fight. I guess that's the problem with revenge. Once you taste it, it's hard to stop. Mia and I met our first year of college in one of those awful gen ed classes where everyone looks miserable. She sat next to me and whispered some sarcastic comment about the professor. I laughed. That was it. We were inseparable from that day on. She was wild, magnetic, beautiful in a way that didn't even seem fair. People gravitated toward her effortlessly. I was quieter, the one who made the plans, who kept us from missing flights or failing classes. Together, we balanced each other. Or, at least, I thought we did. We moved to the city after graduation, found a crappy apartment, built lives we were proud of. We'd both come from small towns where girls like us were supposed to marry local boys and settle down. We wanted more. Mia chased a career in PR. She had the charm for it. And I worked in marketing at a mid-sized firm, the kind of job that eats your soul a little at a time, but pays well enough to make you stay. And then, 3 years ago, I met Daniel. If you've ever had your heart broken by someone you trusted completely, like this video and subscribe. You're not alone. He was a software engineer, not flashy, but solid, thoughtful, the kind of man who listened when you spoke and remembered the small things. When we met, I had walls up so high I thought no one would ever climb them. But Daniel was patient, kind. He chipped away at my defenses until I let him in. Mia loved him at first, or so I thought. "We finally found you a decent one," she teased after she met him. "And he's not intimidated by your big brain. Marry him immediately." It didn't bother me at first when they got along. I wanted them to. I thought it was a good thing. I trusted Mia like a sister. But then came the small things. The way her texts to me started to include little mentions of Daniel, things he'd said, private jokes they seemed to share. The way she'd show up unannounced when she knew I was working late and Daniel would be home alone. I told myself I was imagining it. Paranoia, work stress. Daniel loved me. Mia loved me. They'd never. But then, 6 months ago, everything started to shift. I'd just been promoted. More hours, more responsibility. Daniel was busy with a new project. I was exhausted all the time. And Mia? Mia was suddenly everywhere. She'd text Daniel directly to check in, claiming she didn't want to bother me while I was at work. She'd offer to drop by with food for him when I had late meetings. I confronted Daniel once. "You and Mia, you're spending a lot of time together," I said, trying to sound casual. He looked genuinely surprised. "She's your best friend. I thought you'd be glad we got along." And maybe I would have been if his voice hadn't sounded just a little too defensive, if he hadn't looked away when he said it. I didn't push. I didn't want to be the jealous girlfriend. That's how women lose, by acting like the crazy one. But I started watching more closely. The final straw came on our annual friend group weekend at a cabin upstate, a tradition. The 5 of us, me, Daniel, Mia, and our 2 closest college friends, Sam and Rachel. I almost didn't go that year. I was so drained. But Daniel insisted, "We need this. It'll be good for us." And Mia? Oh, she was eager, almost too eager. From the first night, I noticed it. The way she hung near Daniel, always inserting herself between us in conversations. The lingering touches, the shared glances. My stomach churned, but I kept my mouth shut. I needed proof. The second night, it all came crashing down. I woke up around midnight, thirsty. I padded down to the kitchen and stopped cold when I heard voices from the living room. "Mia, Daniel, I hate pretending," Daniel said, voice low, raw. "Then don't," Mia whispered. "I want you. I've wanted you for months." Silence. Then a sound that broke me, a soft moan. I fled back upstairs, heart hammering, shaking so hard I could barely climb the stairs. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. In the morning, I confronted them at breakfast. I waited until everyone was seated. My hands were ice cold, but my voice was steady. "I heard you last night," I said, staring straight at them. "How long?" Mia froze, eyes wide. Daniel went pale. 3 months. 3 months of lies, of betrayal. I packed my things and left that morning, but I didn't go home, not yet. I needed to think. For days, I spiraled between rage and grief. I wanted to hurt them. I wanted them to pay. But how? I wasn't some hacker or master manipulator. I didn't have access to their every secret. But I had something better: friends. And memory. I started small, quiet. I remembered that Mia had used my work laptop once at a coffee shop, logged into her PR client email. She was notoriously bad at clearing her history. I checked. Sure enough, her password was saved in Chrome. I didn't use it to hack her, I'm not that stupid, but I took note of her login habits: weak passwords, lazy security. Meanwhile, Sam reached out. "I heard what happened," he said. "I'm so sorry." He was angry, for me, for the friend group that had been blown apart. "If you need help, anything, you say the word." I did. Sam had heard things, whispers. Mia had been bragging to certain mutual acquaintances that she and Daniel were finally free, and that I was too obsessed with work to keep a man. The smear campaign had already begun. That's when I snapped. I spent the next week gathering everything I could: screenshots of Daniel's texts to me from when they'd started their affair, old messages Mia had sent about how she'd never do anything to hurt me, timeline contradictions between what Daniel had told mutual friends and what I knew to be true. I wasn't a hacker, I wasn't a genius, but I could connect dots. And then I started to leak. Not all at once, slowly, strategically. A screenshot here to one of Daniel's coworkers, just enough to raise eyebrows about the timeline of his breakup and his new relationship. A forwarded message to one of Mia's biggest clients, reminding them, anonymously, of her recent, unprofessional conduct. The PR world is small. Gossip spreads fast. I thought I'd feel victorious. Instead, I felt sick. And that's when the backlash started. Daniel texted me in a fury. "Daniel, you crazy bitch, you think you can ruin us? You'll regret this." Mia wasn't far behind. "Mia, you're pathetic. No wonder he left you. Everyone sees it now." The messages kept coming. Anonymous accounts posted nasty comments on my Instagram. Friends I thought were neutral ghosted me overnight. It wasn't clean. It wasn't perfect. It was hell. But I kept going. Because somewhere beneath the grief, beneath the rage, a new fire had lit inside me. They thought they could burn my life down. They had no idea how much I was willing to fight. The first week after I started leaking things was chaos. My phone buzzed constantly. Calls, texts, DMs from mutual friends, from people I hadn't heard from in years. Everyone wanted the story. Everyone wanted to pick a side. And not everyone picked mine. It turns out when you go to war against two charming, beautiful people, people who know how to spin a narrative, you don't get to control the fallout. Mia and Daniel fought back hard. She posted a carefully worded Instagram story 2 days after my first anonymous leak, white text on a black background. Sometimes people try to tear you down because they can't handle their own failures. I'm choosing love and forgiveness. I hope others can too. The comments flooded in. "You're so strong, Queen. Don't let the haters win. We know the truth. Stay above it." I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Daniel's approach was more direct. He started messaging our mutual friends, spinning the story that I had always been jealous of his connection with Mia, that our relationship had been dead for months before they got together, that I was unstable, obsessed, trying to ruin their happiness. I saw the receipts. Sam forwarded them to me. She's always been a workaholic, neglected me for years. Now she's bitter. Mia and I found something real. It's sad Ava can't move on. I'd expected them to fight back, but seeing it in black and white still hit me like a punch to the gut. And it worked, at first. I lost friends. Not everyone, but enough. People I thought would have my back vanished. Texts went unanswered. Invites to group events stopped coming. Some of them bought Daniel and Mia's version because it was easier, more comfortable, more palatable than facing the ugly truth that two people they liked had done something terrible. Others didn't want to be in the middle. "I'm staying neutral," they'd say, as if there was any neutral ground in a betrayal this deep. I learned fast who my real friends were. The list was short. Sam, Rachel, a couple of old colleagues. Everyone else, collateral damage. I cried a lot that first week, not because I regretted fighting back, but because I hadn't fully understood the cost. You think you can burn someone else's life down and walk away unscathed? You can't. The fire spreads. And yet, even through the grief, I knew I couldn't stop. Not yet. Not after the lies they were telling. Not after the way Mia looked so smug in that story, painting herself as the victim. I'd started this. I was going to see it through. But I was smarter now. No more big, obvious leaks. No more moves they could trace back to me. Instead, I shifted to what Mia and Daniel feared most: isolation, reputation. Mia had always built her career on relationships. She wasn't the most talented PR professional, but she was likable, connected, people trusted her. And I still knew exactly where those connections were weakest. Years of late-night gossip sessions had armed me well. I knew about the client she'd mishandled, but covered up with charm. The times she'd taken credit for work her interns had done. The colleague she'd slept with to land her first big account. A secret she'd drunkenly confessed one night, laughing about how everybody does it. I didn't need to hack her emails or steal her passwords. I just needed to nudge the right dominoes. An anonymous email to a rival at her agency with carefully worded hints about past improprieties. A forwarded screenshot of an old drunk text to a key client. They're idiots. I'm carrying this account anyway. I didn't invent anything. I didn't lie. I simply reminded people of the truth Mia had worked so hard to bury. It took about 2 weeks for the cracks to show. She lost a major client, one she'd once bragged about being locked in for life. Another PR firm suddenly swooped in to revamp their image, citing recent concerns about professionalism. Daniel was harder. His company had already promoted him to lead on a major project. He wasn't going down over relationship drama. But startups are tight-knit places. Gossip spreads fast. And when that gossip includes screenshots of him bad-mouthing his girlfriend while sleeping with her best friend, well, trust erodes. I didn't know exactly what happened behind the scenes, but 2 weeks after my campaign began, I got a text from Sam. Daniel just got pulled off his project. Company says it's about focus and team dynamics, but everyone knows. I should have felt triumphant. I should have celebrated. Instead, I sat on my couch and cried. Again. Not for them, for me. Because the truth is, revenge doesn't feel like victory. Not really. Not when it's real, messy, human. It feels like losing pieces of yourself along the way. I was exhausted, paranoid, jumping at every phone buzz, every shadow. Mia and Daniel hadn't gone quietly. They were still posting their version of the story, still sending texts to anyone who would listen. The smear campaign against me was relentless, and some of it stuck. I heard whispers at work, saw the way some colleagues looked at me, sympathy edged with suspicion. One senior exec even pulled me aside. "Ava," she said carefully, "I don't know what's going on in your personal life, but it's bleeding into your professional reputation. You need to manage this." I wanted to scream, as if I had started this war. as if I'd asked to be betrayed, humiliated, dragged through the mud. But all I could do was nod and say, "Understood." When I told Celeste, my therapist, she just looked at me with those steady eyes and said, "Is it worth it?" I hesitated. It has to be. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure anymore. The toll was mounting. I was barely sleeping. I'd stopped going out, stopped trusting anyone I wasn't 100% sure of. And then the final blow came. A package on my doorstep. No return address. Inside, a manila folder. Printed screenshots of some of my messages, ones I'd sent to Rachel in the early days of my revenge campaign. Angry, raw, unfiltered, saying things like, "I'm going to ruin them. I don't care how messy it gets. If Mia loses everything, good, she deserves it." And a note typed, "Careful, you're not as anonymous as you think." My blood ran cold. They knew, or at least suspected. And now they were threatening to expose me, to flip the narrative one more time. I stared at that folder for hours. Part of me wanted to burn it. Part of me wanted to run. But another part, the part that had carried me this far, sat up straighter. If they wanted a war, they'd get one. But this time, I wasn't going to fight it alone. I called Sam. "I need your help," I said. My voice was shaking, but my resolve was solid. I need to end this for good. Because in a war like this, you don't win by playing fair. You win by surviving. And I wasn't done yet. I barely slept that night. The manila folder sat on my kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. I couldn't stop staring at it. The messages inside weren't damning. Nothing illegal, no smoking gun. But out of context, they painted me exactly the way Mia and Daniel wanted. Bitter, vindictive, unstable. And if they were bold enough to send that to me, they were bold enough to send it to others. By morning, the paranoia had burrowed deep under my skin. Every text I sent, every email I opened felt like a potential trap. I dragged myself into work, forcing a mask of professionalism onto my face. But the whispers had started. I could feel them, colleagues glancing at me, conversations stopping when I entered the break room. Emma, my boss, looked worried when she passed me in the hall, but didn't say anything. Not yet. I knew it was only a matter of time. At lunch, I met Sam at a quiet cafe downtown. He looked haggard, deep circles under his eyes, hair unkempt. "You okay?" I asked as we sat down. He shook his head. "I've been hearing things. Mia's going nuclear." My stomach clenched. Like what? "She's telling people you hacked her accounts, that you leaked confidential client info, that you're stalking them." I sweared under my breath. "That's insane. I never hacked anything." "I know, but perception is everything, Ava. And some people are buying it. And I heard Daniel's threatening legal action." I stared at him, blood turning to ice. For what? Defamation? Harassment? He's saying you're trying to ruin his career out of jealousy. My breath came fast and shallow. "He can't prove anything," I said, though even to my own ears, the words sounded thin. Sam leaned forward. "Listen to me. You need to stop, now, before this blows up even worse." I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to claw my way out of the spiral I'd created. But deep down, I knew he was right. I'd started this war thinking I could control it, that if I was smart enough, careful enough, I could strike them down without getting burned. But the fire had spread, and now it was threatening to consume me. That night, I sat on my couch, phone in hand, messages from Sam echoing in my mind. I thought about everything I'd lost: friends, peace of mind, my reputation at work. And for what? Mia wasn't broken. Daniel wasn't groveling. They were fighting back, vicious and clever. and I was alone. I called Celeste, my therapist, and left a shaky voicemail. I need an emergency session, please. The next day, I sat in her office, hands trembling in my lap. I don't know what to do, I whispered. Celeste listened, patient as always, then asked a simple question. What would winning look like for you now? I blinked. I don't know. Because right now, she said gently, you're not fighting for justice anymore. You're fighting for vengeance, and it's costing you everything. Tears burned behind my eyes. I can't just let them win. But what is winning? She pressed. Destroying their careers, their reputations? Will that bring back your peace? Will that undo what they did to you? I couldn't answer, because deep down, I knew the truth. It wouldn't. Nothing would. The damage was done. To them, to me, to everything that used to matter. And if I kept going, there might be nothing left to salvage. I spent the next few days in a haze, trying to decide what to do. Then the worst blow landed. Emma called me into her office on a rainy Thursday afternoon. She looked grim. Ava, she began, I need to talk to you about something serious. I sat down, heart hammering. I've received multiple complaints, she continued. Anonymous tips, screenshots of messages, claims that you've been engaging in targeted harassment against former friends and professional contacts. I opened my mouth to protest, but she held up a hand. I know some of this is likely exaggerated, but perception matters, and it's creating a toxic environment around you. Clients are asking questions. Upper management is watching. Tears pricked my eyes. What does this mean? I whispered. For now, Emma said softly, I'm putting you on paid leave. I suggest you take this time to regroup. Think about what's most important to you. Because if this continues, your job here may be at risk. I walked out of her office in a daze. It was happening. I was losing everything. That night, as I lay curled on the couch, Sam called. Ava, he said softly, I just heard. I'm so sorry. I choked back a sob. I don't know what to do. I think it's time to end it, he said gently. You fought hard, but it's not worth losing yourself over. I wanted to argue, to scream that they deserve to suffer. But I was too tired. I can't even remember who I was before this, I whispered. Then start there, Sam said. Rebuild, walk away, let them drown in their own lies. The next day, I made the hardest choice of all. I sent Mia and Daniel a single email. Subject, enough. Body, you win. I'm done. I will not engage further. Do what you will. I'm reclaiming my life. And then I blocked them both on every platform. It felt like ripping out a piece of my heart, but it was necessary. I spent the following weeks in a fog. Therapy, long walks, no social media. Slowly, painfully, I began to rediscover pieces of myself. I didn't check what Mia and Daniel posted. I didn't ask Sam for updates. I let the world spin without me. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was a start. And then, one crisp winter morning, I got a message I never expected. From Mia. Subject, please read. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Ava, you were right about everything. I've lost so much. Daniel and we're done. He's blaming me for everything. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I probably never will. But I wanted you to know I'm sorry for all of it. I hope someday you find peace. I truly do. Mia. I stared at the screen, numb.
I should have felt vindicated, triumphant, but all I felt was exhaustion.
I didn't reply. I deleted the message. And in that moment, I finally understood. True revenge isn't destroying your enemies, it's outlasting them. It's surviving. It's choosing to live when they try to ruin you. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, the whispers faded. Work stabilized. I returned to my job with clear boundaries. Emma, to her credit, gave me a second chance. I rebuilt, brick by brick. One night, over dinner, Sam asked, "Do you regret it?" I thought for a long moment. No, I said honestly. They needed to face consequences. But I regret losing myself in the process. He nodded. That's fair. I'm done fighting now, I added softly. It's time to live again. And I meant it. Some scars never fade. Some betrayals never fully heal. But life goes on. And in the end, that's the best revenge of all. It's strange how life just keeps going. After everything blew up, after the fights, the leaks, the threats, the email where I finally said enough, I expected the world to stop spinning, or at least to slow down. I thought I'd wake up one morning and feel some grand sense of closure, that there'd be a moment when I knew the war was over and I had won. That moment never came. Instead, the days simply blurred into one another. The sun rose, the sun set. I went to work, I came home, I breathed. I survived. That was all I could ask of myself for a while. The first month after I blocked Mia and Daniel was the hardest. Every time my phone buzzed, a shard of panic stabbed through my chest. Every email notification made my pulse spike. I was convinced they would find another way to attack, through my job, through mutual friends, through some new lie I hadn't yet imagined. But then, nothing. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful, it was eerie. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for some final retaliation that never came. I found out later that after my email, Mia had started to unravel. Daniel had already distanced himself from her, blaming her for everything. Typical. When it was convenient, she'd been the love of his life. When things got messy, she became his scapegoat. I heard all this from Sam, who still had occasional contact with people in their circles. "They're both pariahs now," he told me one evening over drinks. "Most of the group is sick of the drama. No one really wants to touch it anymore." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. "I don't know," I admitted. "I think I'm tired of being okay. I just want to be me again." But that was the hardest part. I no longer knew who me was. Before Mia's betrayal, before Daniel, before the months of scheming and rage, I had been someone who believed in trust, in loyalty, in friendship that felt like family. That version of me had died the night I overheard them whispering in that cabin. The woman who emerged from the ashes was harder, sharper, and lonelier. The loneliness surprised me more than anything. You don't realize how much of your life is built around someone until they're gone. Mia had been my closest friend for years, more like a sister than the biological one I barely spoke to. We'd shared everything: birthdays, heartbreaks, late-night phone calls when life felt unbearable. When that bond shattered, it left a hollow space I didn't know how to fill. At first, I tried to distract myself. I threw myself into work, into side projects, into binge-watching entire seasons of shows I barely remembered afterward. But no matter how full I tried to make my days,
the nights were always the same. Me, alone in my apartment, the weight of the past pressing in. One night, I broke. Completely. I was cleaning out my closet, trying to reclaim some sense of control, when I stumbled across a box of old photos. Mia and me at the beach, laughing in the sun. Mia and Mia at my promotion party, arms around each other. Mia and Daniel and me grinning stupidly at some bar I couldn't even remember the name.
I sank to the floor, the box in my lap, and sobbed until my chest ached. It wasn't about missing them, not anymore. It was about missing the life I'd lost, the innocence I'd lost. Celeste had warned me this would happen. Grief isn't just for the people who hurt you, she'd said. It's for the dreams you had, the future you imagined. It's okay to mourn that. So I let myself mourn. I stopped pretending I was over it, stopped trying to force healing on a schedule. Some nights I cried, some nights I raged. Sometimes I sat in silence, staring at the ceiling, too numb to feel anything at all. But gradually, painfully, things began to shift. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during the chaos, people who'd quietly stayed in my corner, even when I'd been too consumed by revenge to notice. One by one, they pulled me back into the world. Sam and I remained close, though even our friendship had changed. There was a time I leaned on him like a lifeline, desperate for someone to steady me. Now, I wanted something more balanced, friendship without needing to be rescued. And Sam understood. He never pushed, never asked for more than I was ready to give, just showed up, quietly loyal. In a world where so much trust had been shattered, his steady presence mattered more than I could say. Even with Sam, the old ease between us wasn't fully restored. Sometimes I caught a flicker of something in his eyes, pity, maybe, or concern, and I hated it. I didn't want to be the woman everyone tiptoed around, the woman defined by her past. But Sam never pushed. He simply gave me space, and that was a gift in itself. One night, after too many glasses of wine, I told him as much. "I don't want to be her anymore," I said, voice thick with unshed tears. The bitter, broken ex, the girl who can't move on. He reached across the table, took my hand in his. "Then don't be," he said simply. "You survived this, Ava. That's not weakness, that's strength." It was a kind thing to say, but it didn't erase the deeper truth I carried. I had survived, yes, but at a cost. There were parts of me I didn't know if I'd ever get back, a certain softness, a willingness to trust. I wanted to believe that one day I'd open my heart again, to love or even deep friendship. But the thought of letting someone that close again still made my skin prickle. In therapy, I talked about this often. "I feel stuck," I told Celeste one afternoon, "like I'm in limbo, not consumed by it anymore, but not free either." She nodded. "That's a natural part of the process. You've spent so long fighting to reclaim your life. Now you're learning how to live it again." "I don't know how," I admitted. "You start small," she said. "You choose joy where you can find it. You rebuild trust in tiny steps. And you forgive yourself for surviving the only way you knew how." That last part hit me hardest. I hadn't realized how much guilt I carried, not for what Mia and Daniel had done, but for what I had done in response. For the leaks, the manipulations, the cold calculation I'd let consume me. For becoming someone I didn't fully recognize in the mirror. I began the slow work of forgiving myself. Not excusing, not forgetting, just acknowledging that I'd been human, that I'd done what I thought I had to do to protect myself in the face of unbearable betrayal. And gradually,
life began to take on new shapes. I moved to a new apartment, smaller, simpler, free of old memories. I joined a book club. I started running in the mornings, not because I loved it, but because it gave me a sense of progress, of forward motion. And one spring afternoon, nearly a year after it all began, I opened my email to find another message from Mia. Short this time, no subject line, just 3 words. I'm sorry, truly. I stared at it for a long time. My first instinct was to delete it, to pretend it didn't exist. But something stopped me. I sat there, hands hovering over the keyboard, and finally typed a single sentence in reply. I hope you find peace.
And then I archived the thread and closed the laptop. I wasn't writing back to open a door. I wasn't offering forgiveness. Not really. But I was choosing, finally, not to carry her weight anymore. That was the truest revenge. Not the leaks, not the career hits, not the social fallout, but walking away with my life intact, choosing to heal, even if it was messy and incomplete. I still think about it sometimes, how easily it all could have been avoided if Mia had chosen loyalty over lust, if Daniel had chosen honesty over cowardice, if I had chosen grace over vengeance. But what's done is done. We all live with our choices. I live with mine. And in the quiet moments now, early morning runs, late night books, simple dinners with friends, I can almost feel that version of me returning. Not the girl I was before, not quite, but someone new, someone wiser, someone harder, yes, but stronger too. And as I stand in that new life, I know one thing for certain. I will never let anyone steal my peace again. 6 months. That's how long it had been since I'd sent my final email to Mia and Daniel and blocked them both. 6 months of trying to put my life back together. Some days it felt like I was succeeding. Small victories like getting through a full week without a panic attack, or managing to have coffee with an old friend without dissecting every word afterward, wondering if they still believed the worst about me. Other days, I wasn't so sure. There were scars no one could see. I still jumped when my phone buzzed unexpectedly. I still caught myself scanning the faces at networking events, looking for hostile stares or forced smiles. The whispers hadn't completely stopped. They never do. And every so often, I'd overhear some half-remembered version of the story being passed around like gossip candy. You know she went full psycho on her best friend, right? Total meltdown, career sabotage, stalking, it's wild. Never mind that the truth was messier, more complicated, less entertaining. In the war of public perception, simplicity wins, and I'd made too many enemies to correct every lie. I was still at the same marketing firm, barely. Emma had gone to bat for me after the worst of it, but my reputation was tarnished. I wasn't getting the biggest accounts anymore. New clients eyed me warily. I could feel the subtle shift, the way people avoided standing too close. Sam said it would fade with time. Maybe it would, but some stains never wash out completely. I was trying, though. Therapy, a few tentative new friendships, more pottery classes, which had become my sanctuary. Then came the gala. Emma had insisted I attend. It was one of the biggest industry events of the year. And a chance, she said delicately, for me to start reclaiming my professional image. I'd almost refused. The idea of walking into a room full of people who might see me as a cautionary tale made my skin crawl. But in the end, I forced myself to go. A year ago, I would have stayed home and stewed. Now I needed to prove to myself that I could stand tall, even if my knees were shaking inside. I dressed carefully. A sleek navy dress, understated jewelry, simple makeup. No red lipstick this time. I didn't want to invite the kind of attention that came with it. As soon as I walked in, I felt the weight of eyes on me. Conversations paused, then resumed with forced cheer. People glanced, whispered, a few nodded politely, fewer smiled. I kept my head high and made the rounds. Halfway through the evening, I was standing near the bar when I heard her voice behind me. Mia. I turned slowly, heart hammering in my chest. She looked thinner, harsher. The effortless charm she used to wield like a weapon was gone. In its place was something brittle, desperate. Ava, she said, her voice honey-sweet with an undercurrent of steel. So glad to see you out and about. I stared at her, forcing my breath to stay even. Mia, I replied coolly. She leaned in slightly, voice dropping. You know, people still talk about what you did. It's impressive, really. You managed to burn us both and still play the victim. I clenched my glass tighter. I'm not here to play anything, I said. I'm here to live my life, something you might want to try. She smiled, a cold, brittle thing. Of course, but just remember, stories linger, and not everyone buys yours. I could have walked away, should have, but something in me snapped. Neither do they buy yours, I said softly, and if you're so sure of your version, you wouldn't still be trying to bait me in public. For a flicker of a second, something flashed in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? Maybe just rage. Then she recovered. Be careful, Ava. People are watching. She turned and melted back into the crowd. I stood there, trembling, the old rage bubbling up like bile. Part of me wanted to run after her, to drag the full truth into the light one more time, to post the screenshots I'd saved, to expose every last lie. But I didn't. Not because I was afraid, because I was tired, because I knew the game Mia was playing, trying to pull me back into the mud so she could point and say, see, she's still obsessed. And maybe she was right. Maybe part of me would always be obsessed. You don't live through a betrayal like that and walk away clean. But I could choose not to give her what she wanted. That was harder than I expected. The rest of the night was a blur. I made polite conversation, smiled when I had to, kept my voice even, but inside I was raw, shaken. The next day, in therapy, I told Celeste everything. She still has power over me, I said bitterly. One conversation and I'm right back in that place. That's normal, Celeste said. You're human, but you chose not to engage further. That's strength. It doesn't feel like strength. It feels like defeat. She shook her head. No, walking away is the hardest thing of all. I wasn't sure I believed her, but I wanted to. The weeks that followed were fragile. I found myself scanning social media again, half expecting Mia to post some new barb, some fresh attempt to twist the knife. And she did. A cryptic tweet. Some people never change. They just get better at hiding. Her little followers lapped it up. I nearly typed a response. Hands hovered over the keyboard. But then I remembered. That's what she wanted. I closed the laptop, took a deep breath. That was the choice I had now, every day. Feed the war or starve it. I chose to starve it. Slowly, painfully, life crept forward. I started seeing someone new, a colleague's friend named Mark. Kind, gentle, nothing like Daniel. The first time he reached for my hand across the table, I almost flinched. I'm not ready for anything serious, I blurted.
He smiled softly. That's okay. Neither am I. Let's just be human together. It was more than I deserved, but I let myself hope. At work, things stabilized. Emma gave me a new account, small, but a start. I believe in you, she said simply. Sometimes that's all you need. As winter melted into spring, I caught myself smiling more, laughing even. The shadows didn't vanish, but they receded enough that I could see the world again. One rainy afternoon, I sat at my pottery wheel, clay spinning under my fingers, and realized something profound. I wasn't healed. I never would be, not completely. Some scars run too deep. But I was here, breathing, creating, living. And that, I decided, was enough. Mia would keep posting her cryptic barbs. Daniel would keep telling his version of the story. The truth would stay messy, complicated. Let it. I had spent too long trying to control the narrative. Now, I just wanted to live my life. Some days, that choice felt easy. Other days, it was a battle. But it was my battle. Mine to fight, mine to win, quietly, in the spaces no one else could see. And so I kept going, one breath at a time, one step at a time. And if anyone asked, if they whispered, did she go too far? I would smile and say nothing.